So I think it's on Monday evening, but might have that slightly out. But certainly in the last 24, 48 hours, Zack Polanski shared something on his Instagram page. And it was of a picture. I'll put it up for anybody that's watching the podcast rather than listening. It's a picture of a man in a T-shirt. He's got a colourful hat on. He's doing a peace sign. And the picture is of a guillotine. And it says, I'm making plans for Nigel. I think
We're only making plans for Nigel.
Do you understand the reference?
Yes.
Of course you understand the reference. It is from?
XTC, the band. We're only making plans for Nigel.
Is that a play on what? Ecstasy?
Yes.
Oh, I when I read it, I didn't hear it in my head.
Ah.
Yeah, okay, so I read it. I'd never heard of XTC before.
Okay. I've seen them live.
Have you? Okay, very
Numerous
good.
occasions.
Of course you have. Of course you have. Now, this was then reported to the police by Reform, by Nigel Farage and Zia Youssef, who both put out tweets. I'll just read you those tweets now. So Nigel Farage said, "This is what Zack Polanski has just posted on his Instagram. If I was to post anything as insightful, then I would expect to be arrested, and so should Polanski." Zia Youssef has said, "So the rules are, if you have right-wing views and post incitement to violence to almost no followers, you go to jail instantly. If you do so as the leader of a left-wing party with one of the biggest social followings in the UK, you don't even have to apologise. Britain 2026. So, I would like to elaborate a little bit on the story. I don't know if you've read much about this.
I've just saw a quick clip of Polanski being interviewed on TV about it and not apologising.
It was Monday, wasn't it? Because it happened when we were at the hustings for the Greater Manchester mayoral election, which is taking place tomorrow, as we record this. And after we left the venue, I remember looking at my phone and saw this news story. Yeah, so it's the sort of thing. I think the first thing I want to say is that living in an age of quick information, we often have a poor understanding of stories, and this leads people to immediately settle into their tribe and to come out fighting. And when I first saw it, I thought, wow, okay. So Zack Polanski's taken a photo of this guy, posted it on Instagram. Like, surely he would, even if he's joking, surely if he realises quite how bad that sounds, particularly with recent events and Widdicombe and Nigel Farage calling this by-election partly as a way of saying, I'm not, I have to pay for all this protection. Those are why the donations were necessary, something we've covered before. So I was really surprised by that. Turns out, if you've seen the interview on Newsnight with Victoria Derbyshire, it's actually what's called a collaboration on Instagram. Now, I know of this because my Sebastian Moore STP account, which you can go and follow if you want, it's the only time I ever go on social media is for STP purposes and posting, updates, campaign things. And I know in the past that someone's tried to collaborate with me. Maybe it was for something to do with a Gorton and Denton election or something. And it says on Instagram, you get a notification and it says, do you accept this collaboration? So, for example, I could put a photo up now of me and you and from my account, and I say, collaborate with hilary.salt. I don't think you've got an Instagram.
I've not.
Okay.
Well, I think I have, but I never used it.
Okay. And if you accept, it then gets posted to your Instagram profile as well as mine, even though I was the person to post it. So what's happened is this photographer, and I think his account is called Just Barold, Barold, and he doesn't have much of a following at all, but he's posted 20 photos in like a carousel, I think it's called, where you flick through them. Zack Polanski's accepted the collaboration, so he's looked through them, accepted it, and one of those photos was of the man in the T-shirt. Victoria Derbyshire has said, did you not look through these properly? Zack Polanski's argument is that he very quickly looked and didn't read the T-shirt, accepted it, and then as soon as it was made clear to him what it was, he took it down. But he's refused to apologise. I think this is crazy in my mind that Reform are missing an open goal, as they often do, because this is a perfect opportunity to gain the the political high ground and say, this was an awful joke, not funny, probably shouldn't have posted it, but no, he shouldn't be arrested. He shouldn't go to jail. He's posted something online, right? That's what we've been saying for ages about Lucy Connolly, about Jamie Michael, who we talked about with Luke Gittos.
Yeah.
Instead, they sort of play I think they're being very hypocritical. And whether they're trying to just make a point is not clear. I mean, their supporters will probably say they're just saying it should be, the law should be applied equally. My point is, and something we've talked about before, they are encouraging, or let's say they are positioning themselves to be the government of this country. So everything they should do is saying, this is how the law should be, right? Because that's what we believe in the sovereignty of Parliament, that if you want to pass a law, you can do it. So as a politician, you don't have to consider everything through the context of what the current laws are. Right, and that's really important. So if you think, no, this isn't the sort of thing that somebody should be arrested for, say it. That's a perfect opportunity to do so. Instead, they're playing playground politics and phoning the police on Zack Polanski for an issue that's just completely ridiculous in my mind.
Agreed. Yeah, I think exactly that. So that's hard to have a discussion about that now because I don't disagree with you. It's just...
But is it... Okay, so just before I move on, because there's a couple other things I want to say about this story, but is that... do you think it's incitement to violence?
Not at all, no. I mean, I always struggle with this argument about things being an incitement to violence because it's almost a way of valuing or disrespecting, probably is a better word these days, the audience. The idea that somebody would see somebody wearing perhaps in poor taste, but actually a little bit amusing T-shirt that you're then going to go and build a guillotine in your back garden.
Right.
And go and get Nigel Farage and hold him down underneath it. I mean, surely nobody thinks that. Mm. I mean, I understand that against the background of Anne Widdecombe and against the background of some of the threats that are made, not just to Nigel Farage, but to a lot of our elected politicians, I can understand it being sensitive. But again, it should be, oh gosh, that was a really dreadful thing to do. Let's hold our hands up and move on.
Yeah, I completely agree. So I think there's the other interesting element to this story is during that interview on Newsnight, Polanski was asked 3 times, as the BBC report in their write-up of the story, whether he wanted to apologise. And he refused to apologise, but also said that he did the wrong thing by sharing it, but said that it was unintentional, so he didn't knowingly do wrong. So he acknowledged the blame, but refused to apologise. And some people, my brother shared a photo with me today of the news article and saying, how can I explain to my 4-year-old when he's done something wrong and he has to apologise, right? And I think, it does seem silly, but I actually think Polanski did the right thing here. Now, Polanski's problem is that he doesn't really believe in free speech or understand the reasons for it. So he sort of falls down there where he could stand up for free speech. It's a perfect opportunity to do so, but he doesn't because I don't think he truly believes in it. However, just in terms of apologising, I think he's right to say, no, I'm not going to apologise. And we've seen this from other politicians. I think Donald Trump showed this. There was a very famous debate moment in the Republican primaries. I think it was 2015, I want to say, where Megyn Kelly asked Donald Trump if he was going to apologise for all the comments he's made about women. And he comes back with this quip saying, only Rosie O'Donnell, right? As in, you don't know who that is?
No, okay. I don't, sorry.
But he's saying, that's the only person I've called, all of these horrible things. And it was a really good way of spinning it round on the media and saying, that's ridiculous, I'm not going to apologise. Because I think the media are so, particularly the mainstream media, they foster this sort of Punch and Judy politics. And what's interesting in that interview is that she asks him about the social care stuff that we talked about at the start of the podcast. And I think it's about a minute, maybe less. And quite quickly she goes back to, I'll just give you one more chance. Will you apologise for the comments? And I'm thinking to myself, like, you've got a leader of one of the biggest parties in the UK now on your show, and that's the best you've got. It's just to ask him, are you going to apologise? Are you going to apologise? And what I would really like to see, and I don't know why they don't do this more, I would love Zack Polanski, Nigel Farage, you might consider them populists, to really push back against the media and say, I'm not going to play these games.
Yeah.
And instead they seem to be acquiescing to it a little bit. That's why I was kind of glad to see Polanski refuse to apologise. It did then get me thinking, when should you apologise? Because this is something, as politicians, as people that want to stand for elections, you and I would have put ourselves forward to be elected to Parliament. We might be in that position where one day we accidentally do something wrong. The media are telling us we should apologise. When should one apologise?
So I think there's two questions there. There's when should one apologise, and what does an apology mean in the kind of Punch and Judy situation we have in the media these days? So, I mean, I think you should apologise when you do something perhaps in the heat of the moment, and you maybe shout at somebody, or you behave in a very impatient manner, and then going back later and apologising, I think is sensible. I don't think I would apologise for a misjudgment. So kind of misjudgment on action, so, I snap at you. I think, apology is sensible. The fact that I had a different view and I've changed my mind, I don't think you should then apologise for the view you had before, because I think something's happened to change your mind, and therefore, you wouldn't necessarily, if you could rewind history without knowing what you now know, you might well think the same as you previously did. So I think those are the kind of decisions I would make in terms of when I would apologise. But I think the real problem now is that the minute you apologise for anything, you are defeated, aren't you? It's just in the way that the media works at the moment, I almost feel any public figure has just got to never apologise. Yeah. And that's not a good place to be in. But it feels that that's the place the media has effectively got us to, where an apology is just never appropriate. Sadly.
And it's funny, isn't it, how you can say, like Polanski did, I did the wrong thing, I wish I hadn't done that.
Yeah.
I wouldn't do that again, which is the core tenets of an apology. But what they want is they want you to say that word.
Yeah.
Say that word sorry. And it's a power thing, so they can use it against you, so they can get their story. And I think it's really insidious. And I've been thinking about, just this morning, really trying to dwell on this idea of apologies, because as a Christian, like, it's important to apologise, I think. And I actually read up a blog which I thought was really useful. And this lady was talking about how sometimes after you've done something, you'll feel a certain sense of guilt. And the difficulty is knowing, is that guilt imposed by people, or is it guilty because you know you've done the wrong thing? And she said that the Holy Spirit will move you. And for anybody that's not Christian or religious, you might call it a conscience, right? When you're sitting there, you think, actually, you know what? I really don't feel good about that. I think I need to say sorry to this person. And if that happens to you and you think, okay, my conscience is telling me I need to go and apologise to this person, you go out there and you find that person. Zack Polanski is actually often at the House of Commons, even though he's not an MP. He's allowed to go as a leader. I think he gets a pass. And you could say to Nigel Farage, hey, have you got 5 minutes? Just wanted to talk to you. And you could say, look, I'm sorry about that. Complete accident. But obviously in the current circumstances and situations, I hope it didn't hurt you too much. And that would be a really honourable thing to do.
Agreed.
But in no circumstances would apologising when a journalist is grilling you on live TV and pressuring you to do so, in no circumstances would that be right in my mind. And that, in this lady's argument from the blog, was that's when the world is trying to convince you. So rather than your conscience or the Holy Spirit, it's when the world is trying to make you feel a certain way, make you feel guilty. And I think that's probably the distinction for when you should apologise.
And it is almost like they're trying to paint it as a good and evil thing, isn't it? So, like, was it Peter who denied Jesus 3 times? Like him refusing to apologise 3 times kind of puts you on that wrong side of history, wrong side of religion.
Interesting, yeah. Yeah, and I think it's so easy for us when you take something out of context, like the current media landscape, social media, and the way that we share information nowadays. You know, this is a guy in, like, I don't even know where it was, some random bloke who looks like a bit of a hippie. You know, he's got quite a funky hat on, who's wearing quite an edgy t-shirt, right? That is referencing a certain band from 100 years ago. Sorry. And it's supposedly funny. And like, you know, it's not up to me to say whether that's funny or not. The individual just, you know, can decide. But it's a random bloke. It gets shared by a fairly unknown photographer, happens to then get collaborated with on Zack Polanski's Instagram. And immediately we're judging this as if it's Zack Polanski's gone out there and called for MPs to be killed. I mean, it's absolutely absurd. And Zia Youssef said, I believe, if he's not arrested, then the police will be calling for open season on all MPs. And you just think, what? When did we get to this point?
That's just mad.